Mr. President, we are beginning to wrap up the appropriation package, which includes the FY19 bills for the Subcommittee on Interior, Environment, and Related Agencies, the Financial Services and General Government, Agriculture, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration and related agencies, as well as Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development and related agencies, or THUD, Interior, Financial Services, and Ag. This is really quite an accomplishment this morning, and perhaps not necessarily noted in the trade press out there. But the fact of the matter is, Mr. President, we're doing our business here. We are doing the business of lawmakers, legislators, when it comes to our annual spending bills. The fact that this is August 1st, and we will be wrapping up in a matter of an hour or so, a couple hours, 4 appropriations bills on top of the 3 that we have previously done, so 7 out of the 12 appropriations bills. This is good progress. This is important progress. Some might say it's historic progress. I say it is progress that is long overdue. And it is because of the leadership, I believe, of Chairman Shelby and his Vice Chairman Leahy, when they came together to basically lay down a path forward for the Appropriations Committee, urging us as chairman of our respective subcommittees to take us back to a process that was a working, functioning process, where we do the work of appropriators, not as authorizers, but as appropriators in advancing these multiple spending bills. So where we are today, in my view, again, is a result of good leadership at the committee, good leadership that says that committee work matters. To be able to lead a committee, the Interior, Environment and Related Agencies Committee, has been a very distinct privilege and an honor for me. These are areas that are clearly of interest to my home state, but when we talk about our nation's public lands, when we talk about support for our indigenous peoples and the agencies that support them, whether it's the BIA or the IHS, whether we think about the arts and the contribution of the arts to our nation, the issues that are within this subcommittee's jurisdiction are good, are important, and it's necessary that on an annual basis we really work to advance these priorities. But we haven't been able to really advance them, not only not here on the full floor, but actually through the full committee. It has been many years. It's actually been since fiscal year 2010 that we had an Interior bill before the full Senate for full consideration. So again, truly a milestone here. So I want to thank, as I've mentioned, Chairman Leahy and Chairman Shelby and Vice Chairman Leahy for their leadership on this. But I also want to acknowledge and thank Leader McConnell for placing a priority on the appropriations process. He urged us to advance without delay these multitude of spending bills, to return us back to that regular order. He set forth a pretty aggressive schedule for us. And in fairness, there were a lot of folks out there who said, Senate's not going to do this one. A lot of skeptics who said they can't get their act together on this one. Well, it's kind of nice to be able to demonstrate that, in fact, we can and we have, and we continue to do this good work. So we are really on track to meet our goal of avoiding what we have come to just accept as regular course of business around here that there's going to be a large omnibus package at the end of the year. But by allowing for a process on this floor where all members of the Senate, not just those of us who serve on the Appropriations Committee, but all of us have an opportunity to weigh in, dig in, review these measures that have come through the committee, offer up amendments, the ability to debate and amend. And granted, we haven't had as many amendments to the floor as I think some of us might have wanted. We haven't had the hours-long debate on some of the perhaps more contentious matters. But what we have done is we have really focused on outlining the spending priorities and ensuring that we can find consensus. And finding consensus around here is the hard part of the responsibility, because it means that I have to stand down on some of my priorities, you have to stand down on some of your priorities in order for any of us to be able to advance the broader priorities. So we are here with a process that has been delayed over the years, but I feel good, I feel optimistic that we've pushed kind of a reset when it comes to the Appropriations Committee and how we will be able to move forward. We know that there's more than just one body in the Congress, and we're going to have to deal with our colleagues on the other side, the House of Representatives, as we move into conference. But you can't get to conference until you've taken the first step, and we will be able to take the first step with these 4 appropriations bills that are part of this package this morning. I wanted to highlight just some of the provisions in the Interior bill that our committee worked so hard on. As I mentioned, this is a subcommittee that has oversight in so many different areas. It's not only our nation's public lands, it's matters relating to our Native people, it is environmental issues with the EPA, it's arts and culture, so a broad array of responsibilities. Some of the highlights here, folks are always very interested in what we have done to meet our responsibility when it comes to payments to those communities, those counties, those boroughs, municipalities, through the PILT program, the Payment in Lieu of Taxes. We fully fund the PILT program at $500 million. This is going to be important to so many of our communities out there. Another issue that has generated its level of support and some opposition in terms of wanting to see some additional reforms is the Land and Water Conservation Fund program. We fund LWCF at the current level at $425 million to ensure that the important work that is advanced for conservation is able to proceed. A lot of focus on what is happening with the devastating forest fires that we're seeing right now in the West, particularly in California. We provide robust levels for firefighting funding to ensure that both the Department of the Interior and the Forest Service have the resources that they need at the time that they need it. When you've got a fire underway, you don't want us to be arguing about whether or not we've got the resources. The resources are there, and we will be there to help. I mentioned the matters that relate to our First Peoples, American Indians, Alaska Natives. We do right by Indian country within this bill. In the 2 main agencies that deliver services for the Indian community, both the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and the Indian Health Service, we have restored the cuts that were proposed of over $1 billion in critical program funding. The bill increases funding for IHS facilities program for construction, maintenance, and sanitation facilities improvements. We hear time after time in Indian Affairs as well as in the Appropriations Committee about the dire situation with so many of our facilities within not only our Indian hospitals around the country, but also within the schools, truly leaving these children behind. So we do provide substantial funding for the BIA to help with the construction of Indian schools, also irrigation systems, public safety facilities, so truly the full picture there. For both accounts, we provide the fully estimated level of contract support costs for health care. This is very significant in ensuring that we're being honest by these accounts. We're not forcing IHS to effectively dip into other pots of funding to fund another. So it's important that we fully fund contract support. In IHS, we also provided $10 million in critical new funding to provide grants to tribes for combating the opioid crisis. So again, we all know all throughout the country the issues that we're facing with opioids. It is almost even more accentuated on our reservations and in many of our places where our native peoples are facing this terrible scourge. When it comes to public lands, how we do right by public lands, whether it is our Forest Service, the BLM, the National Park Service, we work to address contaminated lands matters. We work to provide support for construction and deferred maintenance, not only within our national park system, but within our other public lands. We focus on areas of hazards. Most people didn't give a lot of thought to what's going on with volcanoes until the situation that we are seeing on the Big Island of Hawaii, and now there's a lot of attention. So making sure that we're doing right in understanding some of our natural hazards, whether they are volcanoes or earthquakes, mapping, which is so critical for us. USGS does a great job for that, but we need to be doing more. We've also made responsible investments in the EPA that will lead to cleaner air and cleaner water. So within our bill, we provide additional funding to states who have delegated responsibility for environmental programs. We provide an increase above last year's level for clean water and drinking water state revolving funds. This builds on critical water infrastructure in communities across the country. And I think we all recognize when it comes to that role, the mission of EPA, clean air, clean water. So what are we doing to make sure that they are able to fulfill that mission? These accounts truly do make a difference. We also continue to provide the highest funding level ever for the WIFIA program. This leverages federal funds for water infrastructure projects, and these programs have a direct impact on improving water quality in communities around the country. And then another small category that is not small for the arts and the cultural communities, but again, we do right by our Smithsonians here in our nation's capital, helping to ensure that the National Endowment for Arts and Humanities receives the level of support that I believe is important. So again, those are some of the greatest hits coming out of the Interior Appropriations bill this morning. You have heard similar comments from my colleagues in the other three departments, whether it's financial services, ag, or transportation, housing. So I look forward again to working with colleagues as we advance these measures through the full process, not only here in the Senate, but in the conference with the House later. I'd like to close, Mr. President, by again expressing my appreciation to my friend and the ranking member of the committee, Senator Udall, who is here this morning. He and his staff have just been excellent to work with, and I appreciate his efforts, that of his staff, as we have worked to shape this bill so that it reflects the priorities of members on both sides of the aisle. I think we have worked very hard to do that, and I know I am pleased with where we are right now with this measure. I look forward to the passage of this bill, and again, in working with him and my other colleagues as we move through the conference process. So with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor and wait the comments of my friend and ranking member, Senator Udall.